Well, hello everyone and welcome to Hill City YouTube channel. This is very odd for me. I've never done a YouTube video before in the whole of my life. But I suppose strange times call for strange activities, and I'm just going to give this a go, and I hope that it comes over okay to you. We do live in strange times. We can't do those things which we're used to doing and which we enjoy doing. We don't have the opportunity of going to our normal services in church on a Sunday morning. We can't do our small group meetings during the week. We can't do kids' work. We can't do social work. And my wife and I are stuck in our homes and we can't get out at all. But there are some good things about that. And I guess the best thing is that we've got to start thinking a bit more creatively than we ever did before. So our Sunday morning services are now done by something called Zoom, of which I'd never heard a week ago. And at the beginning of this week, one of our elders, Simon, he put a 10-minute video on YouTube. And he's going to be doing lots more of those, a whole series of them. And the series he's doing at the moment is on the Lord's Prayer. And we other elders, there's 3 more of us, we're going to do the same sort of thing on subjects of our choice. And so my choice, what I'd like to do, is to talk about some of the feasts and festivals of the Old Testament. Interspersed with those videos, I'm also going to put some little videos which have some of the stories, the traditional stories that Jewish mums and dads tell to their children to help their kids understand something of the festival. So I suppose what I'd really like to do is to start off by asking you, what would you say was the most important Jewish festival of them all? And I can almost predict the answers that you come up with. Many people would say, well, it's got to be Passover, hasn't it? And I suppose you're absolutely right. From a Christian point of view, Passover is the feast that most easily translates into the New Testament, because Jesus did a Passover feast shortly before he went to the cross. And of course, that Passover feast, called the Last Supper, has become the basis for our communion service. Other people who didn't perhaps think of Passover as their first answer might have said Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement, or Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year. Somebody else might have said Shavuot or Sukkot or Hanukkah or Purim. And I have to say, regrettably, that none of you are quite right. The most important festival of them all to Jewish people is the one that happens most often. We would call it Sabbath in England and Wales, I suppose. But for a Jewish person, this great festival that happens once a week is called Shabbat. And of course, when Jewish people celebrate Shabbat, they don't celebrate it on the same day as Christian people celebrate Sabbath. Because for a Jewish person, Shabbat is on Saturday. And even in saying that, it's a bit more complicated than simply that. Because for a Jewish person, that special day, Shabbat, begins on Friday night when the sun goes down. And the reason for that is that in Genesis, when God is doing his great work of creation, each day is ended by the words, the evening and the morning were the first day or second day or third day, whatever it might be. So Jewish people begin their days in the evening of the day before by our thinking. So, okay, Shabbat happens every week and it starts on a Friday night and stretches throughout Saturday. Quite often I've gone up to Golders Green in London on Friday, and you know, it's great. The atmosphere is wonderful. I've walked up the main road and there have been lots of Jewish people that you've recognised from their clothing, and they'll just say Shabbat Shalom to you as you pass them. And it just feels really good, you know, that these people have been given this great gift of Shabbat from God, and they really enjoy it. They look forward to it. They're excited about it. And I think there's a lesson there for those of us who are Christians, just in that fact alone, that for the Jewish person, all of the festivals, but particularly this one, is a sign of God's goodness. Why do I say it's the most important festival of all? Well, it's because in the Ten Commandments, this is the only festival that is commanded to be observed. And even in that, I have to say one more thing, because at the Shabbat meal, which happens on Friday night, there are always 2 loaves of bread called challah bread, and they are intertwined, they're plaited, and it's a 2-strand plait, and it's a 2-stranded plait in order that we take note of the fact that for a Jewish person, it's important to both remember and observe the festival of Shabbat. So 2 strands for the 2 elements that they're commanded to do. It's a great day, is Friday, if you're Jewish. If you're a Jewish child, you'll be looking at the clock and trying to make sure that you can leave school early enough to get home in time to celebrate Shabbat with the family. Dad will get home early that night as well. And when they come in, they will see a table prepared for them. And on that table are all the elements that make up the meal. And the meal is such a joyous thing. There's the 2 loaves of bread I mentioned to you. As well as that, there is wine. And then other things are there as well to be enjoyed, just to remember the whole fact that God rested on the 7th day of creation, and so he gives that 7th day to his followers, to the Jewish people, as a gift, if you like, to do it in remembrance of him and his creation of the universe. It might be thought that Sabbath is just a memory of that and little else, but of course it's not, because so many of the festivals that Jewish people celebrate remember the fact of deliverance, of God bringing his people out of Egypt, over the Red Sea, and eventually, after much wandering, which we'll look at with another festival, into the Promised Land. I'd like to read you a verse from Scripture that just shows how Shabbat remembers the deliverance of God's people. It's in Deuteronomy chapter 5 and verse 15, and it says, "Remember that you were slaves in Egypt, and that the Lord your God brought you out of there with a mighty hand and an outstretched arm." Therefore, the Lord your God has commanded you to observe the Sabbath day. So Sabbath is a day of remembering God's wonderful power in creation, but also remembering God's wonderful power in deliverance, bringing the people out of slavery into the Promised Land. Truly, Shabbat is an exciting and interesting time when the whole family comes together. There's another verse I'd like to bring to you from Isaiah chapter 58, verses 13 to 14. And here it reads, "If you keep your feet from breaking the Sabbath and from doing as you please on my holy day, if you call the Sabbath a delight and the Lord's holy day honourable, and if you honour it by not going your own way and not doing as you please or speaking idle words, then you will find your joy in the Lord, and I will cause you to ride on the heights of the land and to feast on the inheritance of your father Jacob. The mouth of the Lord has spoken. I love those verses as I come to the end of this video. Those verses that say, if we do what God asks us to do, if we count God's laws and God's rules and God's edicts and commands for us as a joyful thing, if we look at them as being a gift from God, then God will bless us. And so I don't celebrate Shabbat by refusing to do any work at all. But this I do. I look forward to my Sabbath. I look forward to my Sunday with great joy and expectation, a time of rest and relaxation, a time of meeting with God and meeting with his people. Shabbat's a wonderful thing. I hope you'll do a bit more research on your own. And next time I see you on this intermittent series, I'll tell you a story. Bye for now, and God bless you.